No BS Nutrition is still physical distancing, and we're not mad about it.
This is a 1-hour food fight against diet culture and its fake science messages.
Instead, we're passionate about celebrating real wellness.
I'm registered dietitian Hannah McGee.
And I'm neuroscience PhD student Tareq Youssef, and this is No BS Nutrition. Hannah, it's lovely to be with you back in the studio.
It's lovely to be with you too, Tareq. I missed you.
I missed you. I kind of want to, maybe at the top of the episode, just like send out, I know like most of the people who listen to us are from Canada, and a lot of people who listen are from Nova Scotia. I just want to send out some love to the people in Nova Scotia.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a bit of a tough week for Nova Scotia, so definitely thinking of everyone there and everyone from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, around the world, obviously, everybody's still been dealing with the pandemic. This isn't going to be like a pandemic-heavy episode, so hopefully people see that as like a, I don't know, a little bit of a respite, like if they can think about something else. Unfortunately, people continue to promote junk science even during a pandemic.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm not that surprised, honestly. But one thing I was thinking of is unrelated to the pandemic, but I was thinking about this morning. It just kind of hit me. I really miss recording in person with you.
I know. I love recording
so much.
I love recording in person because we exchange cookies.
Yeah, and we just get, it's just like a, I don't know.
It's in that lovely red room.
We just sit in the same room together. Yeah.
I love being in studio, definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have our own studio one day.
One day.
If anybody's listening from local television. Actually, give Hannah and I a radio show. Why don't we have a radio show?
Oh my God, why don't we?
I don't know.
I think we deserve one.
There has to be a producer listening. One or a family member of a producer.
Yeah, you never know. Hook us up.
Yeah, I need that person to do some work. You know what? You're sitting at home. What are you doing? Yeah, get something going for us.
Oh my God.
I wonder, actually, I was going to ask you, how have you been enjoying your outdoor space? Because you have a little bit of a patio situation.
Yeah, so funny thing about our outdoor space, I'm looking at it right now. It's a little kind of like, we have a sliding back door, but it actually faces, so we live in a townhouse, and it actually faces our street. It doesn't face like the backyard, but I mean, it's our backyard, but the backyard is on the road. So like,
so your house is like on either side, there's a main road.
Yeah.
Like your front door and your back door.
Our front door faces other townhouses.
Oh, like, that's so funny how that's set up.
It's weird. We almost have like a little lane that like there's 3 townhouses on each side facing each other.
Okay.
And the front doors all face each other. So we almost have like a communal like driveway that you pull into, and then like from the road, and then all the front doors are facing each other.
Oh, but it's not much of like a green space, really.
No. So then our back door that actually faces like the road, there is an area where there will be some grass and some green space, but because it's a brand new building, it's not there yet, so it's literally just dirt right now. They haven't put the grass in, but it looks like on Friday they were actually doing something to the dirt. It looks like they were kind of flattening it.
There's progress, and
like they're kind of planning to put some sod down or something, so hopefully that will be done soon. But anyways, we have a little kind of concrete patio that sits essentially on top of the dirt, and hopefully there'll be some grass around it eventually. And there's space for a barbecue. We put a little kind of bench out there. And then, but unfortunately, another thing, there's no like fencing around it or anything. So again, it literally just, it's there and it faces the road and the sidewalk. Right. So people walk by, and like, you're basically just out in the open for all the cars driving by and the people. Basically. Yeah. So there's one divider up like between the other townhouse, but it just blocks our neighbors and us. It doesn't block the people on the street. So we bought this like sliding divider or like screen from Amazon
Yeah.
that we hooked up, or like Pat must have drilled it into the like divider that we have between us and our neighbors, and then it like slides out and hooks onto a pole that we had to drill into the concrete. And so you can slide it out to kind of create a screen from the road.
Privacy.
Yeah. So that's been okay, but unfortunately, I'll tell you a little funny story. You know Pat well. When we put it up, it's quite windy on our street, and so it's not super sturdy. Like, it was kind of blowing a little bit in the wind, but not the wind wasn't, and it won't be strong enough to ever like take it down or anything like that. But I did notice that when it was windy, like, it was pulling on the pole that's drilled into the ground, and I said to Pat, we should make sure that we don't leave it up at night, just in case it gets really windy. We don't want the pole to get bent or anything like that.
Right.
Literally, that night, Pat was out on the patio having a little FaceTime date with some of his friends. He pulled the screen across. Of course, he gets cold. He comes inside. He shuts the door. He closes the curtains. And he's still on FaceTime with his friends. Eventually, he goes to bed. The next morning, I wake up. It's been a super windy night. He left the screen up. And I look outside, and the pole is like just like completely bent and like almost like uprooted from the concrete that it's drilled into. And so I was a little upset about that. But,
sure, yeah.
I think we fixed it. Pat went out yesterday and he unscrewed it and put it back in, and it's a little bit kind of bent, but it still works. So that's good. It's good. Yeah.
We don't have any outdoor space at all, but I mean, there's so much green space around us, but I do feel weird, like but it's like an island in the middle of the road. I do feel kind of weird about like going out to enjoy the island like while there's cars driving. There's not, and we're not really supposed to be in parks and everything, so I do kind of miss being outdoors.
Absolutely.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I will get some walking in or something like that, but it's a little different. I don't know. The enjoyment of it is a little different.
For sure. Now. I don't know if you know, but a little update about New Brunswick, which is where I am. They lifted some restrictions on Friday, so 2 days ago, because New Brunswick is, they're doing okay in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. We haven't had any new cases in about a week.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's great.
It hasn't been any new cases. I think.
Well, New Brunswick has been really strict about closing their border.
Yeah.
Which apparently has worked.
Yeah, it seems to have worked. I think we actually only have about, I think it's somewhere between 10 and 16 active cases right now. Like, all the other ones have recovered. So they lifted some restrictions on Friday. They opened parks, so you're allowed to go to like parks as in like walking trails. Yeah, not like playgrounds, I don't think.
Yeah.
And golf courses, you can go golfing now. And they also, kind of neat, they said that everyone can have one other designated household with which they interact.
Oh.
They're calling it a bubble, so you can have a bubble. Like, so I have my best friend lives here in Moncton as well with her partner, and so
that's what I was thinking of. I was like, oh my gosh, are you gonna go visit?
Yeah, so we designated them as our bubble, and they actually came over last night.
Oh, I love
we had dinner.
That's so nice.
So it's I guess we're lucky here that, but I feel like we're lucky, but I also really still want to be really careful, because you don't want to start, lifting too many things and then have kind of a second wave or something like that. Of course. So, yeah.
Well, that is really nice that you would enjoy that. I'm really, really happy to hear that there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah. Anyways, so maybe we should dive into Tareq, FBS of the week. What have you heard this week? What's
something I was really something I've been curious about for a while, because I heard about it, is have you heard of anxiety relieving gummies?
No.
Like taking gummies that apparently have anxiety relieving properties.
There's a gummy for everything.
There's a gummy for everything. But
wait, is it like CBD?
So a lot of them are CBD. So potentially there's something there, like CBD has in fact been linked to decreasing anxiety. There's no studies that actually look at the effect of it from gummies, but there's no reason to believe that if the CBD isn't in there, that it's going to work any differently.
Right.
We know that it crosses the blood-brain barrier, so and also the effective CBD is not really just restricted to the brain, but also throughout the rest of the body. It's supposed to provide a general relief of pain as well throughout the body through the cannabinoid receptors that are found elsewhere, not just in the brain. I don't know too much about all of it, but definitely there has been science to show that CBD is efficacious in relieving anxiety. The thing that I want to debunk is I found that there's actually a lot of gummies, and it seems like people are trying to make money off of this because they're trying to trick customers. A lot of gummies and a lot of other products even that are using hemp oil. So hemp is a relative of the cannabis plant.
Right.
It does not have psychoactive properties because it doesn't contain cannabidiol or CBD or THC. But people, or I guess some companies, are still using it as an ingredient in their products, like gummies, which you can find hemp oil gummies, without explaining that it doesn't actually have the psychoactive ingredient in it. So they're just saying that hemp oil is going to provide anxiety relief and so on.
That's silly.
So it's just blatant lying, and it's relying on the consumer to just think oh, hemp is related to cannabis, so this must work the same way. Right.
That's so misleading.
It's very misleading. So there is no CBD in natural hemp oil. No. Sometimes, you can add CBD or THC to various oils, so that they can carry the ingredient through your system, which people make weed butter or so on. Right. It's kind of the same idea, but in natural hemp seed oil, there is no psychoactive ingredient. No. So these gummies are just gummies.
They're literally a source of omega-3s.
Literally. Exactly. They're a source of healthy fat. All kinds of fat are in there: polyunsaturated, saturated, omega-3, omega-6. Fats are in there, but there's no psychoactive property.
Anxiety relieving benefits from
the other thing that I looked at is, okay, maybe this is some alternative medicine, which I don't believe in, but naturopathic thing. Maybe there have been studies about hemp oil and anxiety relief. You never know.
Sure.
There aren't. There's just no. Just no studies about hemp oil and anxiety relief. Probably because there's very likely no studies about canola oil and anxiety relief.
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that.
Or avocado oil.
That. Right.
Olive oil.
Yeah.
So that's my BS of the week. This week is hemp oil anything, but especially hemp oil gummies, because they're very prevalent.
Hemp oil or hemp for anxiety relief. That's not a thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's you can make lots of stuff with hemp oil, but it's just going to be making it with any other vegetable oil.
Totally. Yeah, I'm a big...
psychoactive relief.
Right. I'm a big fan of hemp products, like hemp seeds and hemp oil or hemp hearts, whatever you want to call them, for... Yeah, they're healthy fats. They're
I love hemp hearts.
I love them. We're obsessed with them.
I'm a convert.
Manitoba Harvest.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
But yeah, I actually have a bottle of hemp oil in the pantry, and yeah, I use it the same way I would any other vegetable oil, and I'm definitely not expecting any other benefits than I would from another vegetable oil or another source of healthy fats. I am really actually surprised by that. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it's so disappointing when you see brands being misleading, but like that, or trying to make these little teeny
Yeah, it's
connections.
like they're hoping on the tiniest like connection between the two. It's like almost a game of word association.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's so weird. And yeah, I don't know. This whole gummy thing gummies are booming right now. Like
I guess because it's easy, it's like nostalgic. People like candy.
And they almost think they're like vitamins, like because there's gummy multivitamins,
right,
so it's
right.
kind of like adding it to your supplement routine is exactly something easy. It's tasty. I've seen
the phrase supplement routine is amazing.
Sorry, I don't have a supplement routine. I mean, I take my vitamin D every day, but like you always see wellness influencers.
Right.
Let me take you through my supplement routine, and it's just like.
Well, there's $300 down the drain.
Yeah, exactly. But I know we have talked about in the past, we talked about the apple cider vinegar gummies, and then we just talked about these hemp gummies. But I was watching a YouTube video yesterday, just like this influencer like came up on my like recommended, like watch this video on my YouTube, and it was like a what I eat in the day kind of video. And one of the things she mentioned taking was these like focus gummies.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah, like I really find that, sometimes I feel a little scatterbrained or whatever, and then when I take one of these gummies, I actually focus better. Like, I don't know, it was very simplified what she said, but I don't know what was in them, but I just literally on the package it was like focus,
nothing.
and it was just like a package of gummies.
There's nothing in them.
Right. I'm actually curious, but there's probably nothing that would
we can look those up. That's very interesting. Maybe a future BS of the week.
Exactly.
Or, you know what? Prove me wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong.
Totally. Prove us wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. That I think, that kind of, I guess it's a reminder to be really critical when you're reading things on labels. And I guess actually not this episode, but one of our upcoming episodes will be about food labels and reading labels on products. And that's definitely something to look out for, misleading claims or because I think that's something that's not, I don't know, a lot of brands get away with, like what they put on their packaging in terms of the benefits of what this is going to lead to, or the claims that are made about what's in the product and things like that.
And again, I think it's also true for the States, but at least in Canada, there are no regulations. We've mentioned this before. There are no regulations about like supplements or like alternative products and selling them. Like you can kind of say whatever you want. The only time that Health Canada will get involved is if there's an active complaint about the product, and then they'll go in and review it. But you can basically make anything and put it on the shelf. Just because it's on a shelf doesn't mean that it's been approved by anybody.
Herbal supplements are not highly regulated.
There's no like what am I trying to say? There's nobody in place that's like watching all these products come out and making sure they're efficacious before they're being placed on the shelf.
Yeah.
Just because you can buy them at the store does not mean that they're effective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. Very good point to bring up. All right, so might as well dive into our topic for the week. I think our last couple episodes were very, how do I want to say it? What were our last two episodes? I can't even remember.
Like molecular based nutrition.
We were very, that's true. Molecular based, and we were really kind of debunking things and diving into a lot of kind of research heavy, proving whether or not something is worth trying or works. So we kind of wanted to step a little bit away from that this week and maybe cover a more general topic and hopefully teach you guys something and just, I don't know, help you guys learn about something that may be of interest. Maybe it will become of interest after this episode. Mm-hmm. So, and it's something that we both, I don't know, it very much aligns with our kind of nutrition beliefs and philosophies. So today we're going to talk about HAES, or health at every size, and what the premise of health at every size and kind of what the movement is all about, and the philosophy and the principles of health at every size. So we're really excited. When did you first learn about health at every size, Tareq?
I think I'm trying to think. Probably through you. Maybe not. Maybe we hadn't had a conversation about it, but just like through seeing the people that you follow on Instagram, and when we started working on the podcast, just like seeing what recommended people would come up, and running into some not just body neutral dietitians, but also health at every size dietitians.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of practitioners now who health at every size is kind of the focus and the premise of their work and their counseling, and I think that's really great. I think a lot of people don't know about health at every size, and again, I mean, as we've discussed many times, but we're all kind of brought up with the idea that thinner equals healthier and larger equals unhealthier, and health at every size is really kind of the opposite of that. It's really the idea is that you can practice healthy behaviors or live a healthy lifestyle, or be healthy at any size.
And the message that's spread right now, actually really relevant during the pandemic even, maybe I'll speak about it in terms of COVID-19 because it's been brought up a couple of times, and it's something that has caught my eye. So for example, there's now anecdotal evidence spreading saying that obesity is a risk factor for getting COVID-19. That's a very catchy title, very catchy headline. But when you dig deeper, it's actually a bit more nuanced than that. So it may be that the consequences that are associated with obesity, they themselves are risk factors for developing COVID-19. But not living in a larger body is not a risk factor for getting COVID-19.
No.
Whether if you're in a larger body and you happen to have some underlying conditions, or you happen to have some things that are associated with, on a very large population scale, high BMI, you happen to have whatever, consequences of that, maybe that can be those can be risk factors for getting COVID-19.
Sure. Yeah.
But the articles don't discuss it in that way. They just kind of it's like this blanket statement. So I think like kind of combined with like really fat phobic sentiments that are developing, well, obviously before the pandemic, but even during the pandemic, I think it's a very dangerous thing to be making those blanket statements, because it just adds fuel to the fire for discrimination against fat people in larger bodies. Yeah. So I'm really happy we're talking about this today.
I am too. It's definitely relevant for sure. So basically, I mean, the premise of health at every size, I believe, comes from the book Health at Every Size that was written by Lindo Bacon, and they are a researcher and author. So they wrote the book Health at Every Size, and then also another book called Body Respect. And basically Lindo is really one of the leading advocates for body positivity and health at every size. Probably it's the first name that I think of when I think health at every size. Do you agree?
I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Yeah. I didn't dig deep into the history.
Okay. Yeah. So I believe it. Yeah. It comes from the book Health at Every Size. And basically Health at Every Size is kind of based on the idea that shaming someone based on their weight is actually a lot more counterproductive than we think it is. And we've talked about this before, but I think a lot of times people think that they're being helpful by encouraging someone to lose weight, or, they might be coming from a tough love approach and saying, you need to lose weight, or maybe using like fear tactics and things like that towards people in larger bodies, trying to encourage them to lose weight. But the evidence actually suggests, and this is kind of what the Health at Every Size book is about, it's that people are more likely to engage in healthy behaviors when they're encouraged and supported regardless of their weight, and rather than being called names or fat shamed and constantly encouraged to just lose weight. Like when they're encouraged to adopt healthy behaviors, they're a lot more likely to do that than if they're encouraged to do them for the sole purpose of losing weight.
Right.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, there's more and more research kind of coming up, and we've delved into that a little bit, right? With I think in pretty recent episodes that healthy behaviors are a bigger contributor to our health outcomes than our weight or our body size. I feel like we've probably said that so many times on the podcast.
It's an important conversation.
Yeah, and so things like eating well or eating fruits and vegetables and fiber-rich foods and those kinds of things are starting to be more and more recognized as things that can, decrease your risk of chronic disease and things like diabetes and blood pressure, even if they don't result in weight loss.
Right, and the other thing is like the alternative to that. So focusing on weight, not only is it ineffective in producing even weight loss or producing healthier outcomes, but it contributes to, like you were mentioning earlier, more body negative thoughts. But even worse than that, it contributes to development of eating disorders, reduced self-esteem, weight discrimination, and the even worse thing is losing focus on other health determinants, like losing focus on things that you can actually go in and tackle with your healthcare practitioner,
right,
that might be contributing largely to whatever health problem somebody might have.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're just focused on losing weight, you're not going to be focused on, something else.
Right. I totally agree. There was this really great kind of definition that I found from the Association for Size, Diversity, and Health. So I want to read that. I think it kind of really sums up health at every size. And it says that the health at every size approach shifts the focus to acknowledging and respecting an individual's circumstances and works to investigate and support options that are available to him or her to help make choices that benefit his/her health and well-being. For either the 68-pound or 600-pound person, using a HAES or health at every size approach puts the focus on their behaviors, unique sets of abilities, and available resources, and places them in the context of their life as the primary areas of concern and consideration. Each individual will have their own strengths and vulnerabilities and will likely respond to stimuli in their unique way. Improving a person's health is a process that begins by contemplating what it would take to make certain determinants of health available and accessible to different individuals and not pathologizing any specific weight.
That's a really good definition, and it really points to how health at every size, other than just being like a body positive movement, is really it's also promoting this shift in the healthcare system, kind of asking healthcare practitioners to address health with people in various body sizes, of various body shapes and sizes, to address health with promoting, positive changes in behavior rather than focusing on weight itself, whether it's, weight loss or not. This is a really interesting topic because, so I found a really interesting paper actually by Bacon and Aframore in 2011. It's called Weight Science, Evaluating the Evidence for a Paradigm Shift. So I guess I did run into Bacon.
There you go.
And aside from, giving these really great definitions and things, it also brings, and talking about how weight loss directed, healthcare is ineffective and can be harmful. It also brings up the question of, the ethical implication of recommending weight loss as a treatment. When, we've talked about this on the podcast before. It's really, really hard to lose weight. When people go on weight loss diets, it results in maybe at most on average a 5% reduction in weight loss, which can be really beneficial if, you're somebody who is, and you can speak to this more than I can. I had a really great conversation with my friend Hayden about this, actually, who's a medical student. If you have a 5% reduction in weight loss and you're type 2 diabetic, that might really beneficially affect your, blood sugar levels and so on.
Yep.
But the problem is, and I think this is where it gets really difficult, and where HAES is really good, is that weight loss, like losing 5% of your weight, whatever, that is really difficult to do, first of
Sure.
all. So that's
Yep.
like the best possible outcome. And the
Yep.
second problem is that it's really difficult to maintain, especially
Yeah.
when you go on like a calorie deficit diet and higher exercise. It's very, very likely that people are going to rebound their weight, gain the weight back, or even gain more weight because they're not focusing on their actual lifestyle changes, but rather it's this like
the
intensive
weight.
change. I'm
Yeah.
going to change my weight with calorie deficit
Yeah.
and
And
higher exercise.
it doesn't end up being sustainable. It's so
Yeah.
So what you're saying is true. A lot of research has indicated that a 5% reduction in weight can show benefits. Yeah, like you said, in terms of things like blood sugar and blood pressure. But you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's really hard to achieve that weight loss in a way that's sustainable and I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, realistic for the individual, something that they're going to be able to maintain and be happy with for the rest of their lives.
And this paper kind of brings up so what are the ethical implications of recommending that? Is it actually unethical for healthcare practitioners to promote weight loss as like the primary healthcare outcome? When in fact, there's all these studies to show that A, it's really difficult to do, and B, it's not sustainable. But so I don't know, maybe we'll like keep getting into this, but I actually had some conversations with some other dietitians previously about this, and I've been having this conversation with myself. So that, obviously through HAES, one of the things that healthcare practitioners might be recommending is maybe behavior changes around food, so promoting maybe intuitive eating practices or so on, which encompass both food choice, eating patterns, and body movement. So kind of trying to promote healthier behaviors around that. The problem is, and even like from a neuroscientific perspective or from a psychological perspective, as much as like I agree with those sentiments and those intuitive eating practices and so on, it is so hard, just like it is to lose weight, it's so hard to modify behaviors and to change our routines and to implement things so that they become lifestyle changes rather than just like short-term changes. It's really, really hard to implement behaviors. It's kind of like, it is actually really difficult to teach an old dog new tricks, unfortunately. It's not impossible, but it is really hard. So I think that's actually one of the biggest, and we haven't talked about this before, but one of the biggest, what am I looking for? The word I'm looking for. Arguments against intuitive eating is that it is actually really hard to change behaviors. But I think the thing that makes me believe in intuitive eating practices, or not focusing on weight but focusing on behavior changes in general when we're talking with respect to HAES, is that it is true that when we eventually make that jump, do change our behaviors, that does become more sustainable. So that is, in the long run, the more possibly even more ethical approach to healthcare.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but it's that like understanding that this is actually a really difficult process.
I think
that that's kind of,
but that's the reason why I think unrealistic or like fad diets or things like keto and things like that are so popular, and people grab onto those things because it's so much easier to just 100% get rid of carbs entirely for, I don't know, a month than it is to like really dive in and work on like your habits and
totally.
just and make like long-term sustainable change. It's a lot easier to just kind of jump in and say, all right, I'm done with carbs, like for the next month I'm keto.
Moderation is the hardest thing in the world.
Exactly. It's
like the most difficult thing.
But unfortunately, that's the thing that we've seen is
that works.
it's the one thing that actually works is actual sustainable behavior change. Like just lifestyle behavior change. That's the thing that works. But it's people don't understand how hard it is to actually
so
achieve
hard.
that. But when you do achieve it, it is the thing that works. And
I
it
mean,
works
maybe
long term.
Maybe you can speak to this more, but I think it's kind of like therapy. Like you have to keep going to therapy.
Yeah.
Like you don't just go once and you feel
Yeah.
better. This is like learning intuitive eating practices, or like working with a HAES dietitian.
Yeah.
Is something that is like an ongoing process.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to change those behaviors in a sustainable way, and that's going to take time.
And I think this kind of is leading me into something I want to talk about. I think there's a lot of issues around, people in larger bodies feeling like, this is something, and we've talked about weight stigma before, but not feeling comfortable seeking out treatment from their doctors or from their dietitians, or even just going to the doctor because they've felt shamed about their weight before. And a lot of times those are the things that are affecting their health more than their weight, right?
Yeah.
It's the stigma or the fear of going to the doctor and just being told, okay, lose weight, or going to the dietitian and just being told, you need
like
to
you
lose
want to
weight.
go in and just talk about your asthma or something.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You're being told like, okay, well, come back to me once you've lost 20 pounds because I can't deal with you.
Even if it is something blood pressure related or whatever, but it's just always the first thing that's discussed is you need to lose weight. And a lot of times there's, hopefully if you go to a dietitian there is, but a lot of times from at least, stories that I've heard, a lot of times when you do go to the doctor, it's just like, you need to lose weight. It's a brief, maybe like 10-minute conversation about food or whatever, and then you're out the door. And there's really no support there. And how can you be expected to make sustainable long-term change with like 10 minutes of advice, and then you're sent out the door and you feel bad about yourself because you were just like, they snapped their fingers and told you needed to lose weight. And something else I just wanted to touch on quickly is also the idea that a lot of times weight loss attempts just lead to weight cycling and yo-yo dieting. So this phenomenon where you lose weight and then you gain it back, or you go on a diet, you lose some weight short term, and then it's not sustainable, or you quote unquote give in to cravings or whatever it is because you've restricted so much, and it's these changes you've made aren't sustainable, and then you gain weight back, or you gain even more weight back, and it's just this kind of up and down cycle or yo-yo. And a lot of research has shown that it could be these things, this yo-yo dieting, that's actually contributing to negative health outcomes, again, rather than just maintaining a higher weight, like without going up and down and up and down. Like if you just live in a larger body and it doesn't change, like it doesn't keep going up and down however many pounds, that's healthier than going up and down and up and down and up and down.
Sure.
Right.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's that losing and gaining the weight that's increasing risk of disease, rather than if you were to just maintain your weight or staying steady at a higher weight.
There was this really interesting paper that clinical trial that they cited in the review paper I mentioned earlier. They cited the largest ever randomized control trial that was a dietary intervention. It was called the Women's Health Initiative. Have you heard about this? Women's Health Initiative?
I don't think so.
So it had more than 20,000 women, and the 20,000 women were all on a low-fat diet, restricted calories, and they had increased activity, so more body movement. So they followed them for 8 years, really longitudinal study. After 8 years, there was almost no change in weight from the starting point. Maybe about 1/5 of a pound was lost overall on average, and weight circumference actually increased. So that's probably associated with like age.
Waist circumference?
Waist circumference increased.
Yeah.
Overall. That's probably associated with like 8 years age. People's bodies change with time. Yeah. So there was almost all of the weight loss throughout the program was like regained within 5 years. So this is really like, I don't know, pretty interesting evidence to show us that it's not sustainable to go through these calorie restricted diets.
No.
exercise is really healthy. People should be exercising in a way that's comfortable for them and, a really healthy way. But just for the sake of weight loss, it's not going to provide that result in a sustainable way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow.
And the same is even true of weight loss surgeries. I think people are very likely to rebound their weight after a weight loss surgery.
Yeah, that's a tricky topic. Honestly, I feel like we could do an entire episode on weight loss surgeries, and
it'd be very interesting.
That would be really interesting. I'd love to do that. Maybe we should put that on our list.
Yeah, we should.
One thing that I wanted to touch on, because I know this is a big misconception, I wanted to kind of touch on what HAES isn't, so what it is not, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of kind of conflicting ideas, and similar to intuitive eating, people who don't really know what it is, but they hear like bits and pieces or like a little bit about the premise of it, they get this idea in their head that, so take intuitive eating for example, a lot of times people just think it's just eating whatever you want whenever you want. And and people always say, well, if I ate intuitively, then I would just eat chips all day. And it's like, no, that's not, like, if you read about it and you learn the principles and you work through it, that's not what it's about at all. It's actually like a self-care framework of eating. Anyways, that has, I digress. But health at every size isn't healthy at every size. So I know that's like a very subtle difference, but it's not the idea that like everyone right now, whatever they're at, are healthy. Like that's not, it's not what they're saying. And I think a lot of times people think that, and that's why they don't, they're opposed to it and they don't get on board with it. They're like, you can't just look at someone and know that they're healthy, but it's also like you can't just look at someone and know that they're unhealthy. That's kind of the premise of health at every size. It's not just kind of throwing all interventions up in the air and saying like, you're
everybody's
healthy, you're fine.
Yeah,
There's no need to make any behavior change. That's not what it is. And I think a lot of times people think that, like, just because you're not making any, you're not focusing on weight, people think that you're not changing things, which is it's not true at all. Right. So, yeah, it's not saying that like you can gain or lose as much weight as you want and still be healthy as well. Like that's kind of not what it's saying. But it really takes weight kind of away from the equation. That's what it is. Right. And there so similar to intuitive eating, there are some principles of health at every size. So again, these 5 HAES principles, I got them from the Association for Size, Diversity, and Health, so I'll link them. But I'll just kind of run through them quickly. So the first principle is weight inclusivity. So the accepting and respecting the inherent diversity of body shapes and sizes, and rejecting the idea or pathologizing specific weights. So touched on that a little bit in the definition. The second one is health enhancement. So supporting health policies that improve and equalize access to information and services, and personal practices that improve human well-being, including attention to individual, physical, economic, social, spiritual, emotional, and other needs. So really kind of addressing the whole
patient-centered.
Yes, exactly. Not just their weight. The third one is really important, respectful care. So acknowledging our biases and working to end weight discrimination, weight stigma, and weight bias. Providing information and services from an understanding that socioeconomic status, race, gender, sexual orientation, age, and other identities impact weight stigma, and support environments that address these inequities. So I think we could do a whole topic on the social determinants of health. That would be huge. And just kind of, because I know a lot of people aren't really informed about that, but letting people know that there really are so many things that contribute to your health that you can't, some things you can, but a lot of things you can't change. Right. Like your socioeconomic status, your sexual orientation, race, things like that absolutely play a role in your health outcomes that get overlooked.
Right.
Yeah. So then number 4 is eating for well-being. So again, kind of like intuitive eating or a self-care framework around eating, promoting flexible, individualized eating based on hunger, satiety, nutritional needs, and pleasure, rather than externally regulated eating plans focused on weight control.
I mean, a lot of this just sounds like people just want to be treated with the same privilege that straight-sized people get treated with.
Totally, exactly. And that's what really, health at every size is. It's everyone is deserving and worthy of respectful care, regardless of your size or your weight. And then
Right.
the last principle is life enhancing movement. So again, similar to intuitive eating, it
Right.
it encompasses the idea of moving your body, so supporting physical activities that allow people of all sizes, abilities, and interests to engage in enjoyable movement to the degree that they choose.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I have like chills reading those 5 principles.
It's really important. I mean, yeah, people get a lot of people based on whatever characteristics get discriminated against and get cast aside in our healthcare
Yeah.
system, and a lot of them are people who live in larger bodies, and that really has to change because everybody deserves good healthcare.
Like reading those principles, to me that's like everyone deserves all of those things.
Of course, absolutely.
And it like I'm just sitting here like I want to like pump my fist in the air, and I'm like, that is
Yeah.
what I can get behind. Like those 5
Well,
principles, that is what I can get behind. Like
Totally.
for sure.
I actually think there's some really cool dietitians we can have conversations with in the future about social determinants of health.
Yeah.
Maybe in an upcoming episode, because it is a really interesting topic.
Yeah, it is. It is. So do you have is there any other
I did have a little
pointers
bit
or
more.
research you want to talk about? Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to look at another more recent HAES-related study. So this one's called Does Health at Every Size Fit All? A group-based trajectory modeling of a non-diet intervention. So why did they go for this study? So HAES seems to be like this, like we're talking sustainable strategy for weight management. But there's a lot of differences between people, individual differences that make it challenging to might make it challenging for a healthcare practitioner, for a doctor or a dietitian to address behavioral modifications. So not everybody is going to require the same strategies moving forward. Like we were saying, it has to be really patient-centered. Some things just don't work for some people.
Absolutely.
So that is very challenging for a healthcare practitioner. So they wanted to understand how HAES interventions affect people. So they had women in this study that they studied women who were categorized as obese. So what did they find in this study? So they went through HAES interventions with these women, and there were some women who were and the things that they measured, were depressive symptoms, self-esteem, intuitive eating. So that they weren't looking for weight loss as an outcome necessarily.
Okay.
They were looking for these other categories or these other characteristics. So there were some women who were non-responders. About 15% of women just, didn't better their depressive symptoms, didn't better their self-esteem, didn't better their intuitive eating practices.
Okay.
50% had some moderate improvement, and then another 30% had sustainable changes of that improvement. So we were talking about how it's hard. You can make those changes in the short term, but it's really hard to cement them, right? So only about 30% of people had maintenance of that improvement, and only 7% were people who were high functioning responders moving forward. Really, so it is still very, very challenging.
Yeah.
So it seemed like sociodemographic variables were predictors of the outcomes. Lifestyle, health, and weight variables didn't didn't really change that much.
Yeah.
It was only, so I'm just trying to see here. It was a total of 16 months, the study that they followed these women. It was 210 women. Okay, so the interesting thing that I found out of this study is that the people who were non-responders had the worst, as put by this study, worst psychological functioning. So these were the people that had less adapted eating behaviors, and they actually tended to reach the clinical cutoff for severe depression. So what does that mean? So to me, it was like the psychological characteristics of a person might be huge variables to consider when we're treating a patient and moving forward with something like a HAES intervention.
Right.
They may need actually like more personalized healthcare that addresses their depressive symptoms or whatever other psychological symptoms, as well as their other health issues.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's actually really interesting because it's like, do we treat the symptoms first or do we treat the underlying problems? You know,
Right.
in certain cases, it may be that when a patient comes to a healthcare practitioner for, say, I'm not a doctor, do not take my medical advice, but or it comes to a healthcare practitioner for, let's say, blood pressure or something, like you can treat that symptom with a drug or an intervention, a behavioral intervention, but they might have this underlying problem that might be affecting that problem as well, like depressive symptoms. So it's actually this like thing that maybe ideally we need to target these things at the same time. But of course, that just makes it more challenging. But I guess it points out that there is this need for people who are potentially non-responders to a HAES intervention to address psychological symptoms, which is not something that I would have thought about before reading this study.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And I mean, it makes sense to me. It actually reminds me of, I don't want to go too into detail because I don't want to, anyways, I'll just kind of tell you, but I have a friend who works in healthcare. I'm not going to give too many details, but they were telling me about a situation that they had at their hospital. Again, they kept it very minimal details as well, so as to not, give away any patient information or anything like that. But basically, they had a patient who was in a larger body, and quite heavy. I mean, I think somewhere like 400 pounds or something like that, and had a lot of mental health issues. But I think one of the things that she mentioned to me was they had or had at least expressed that they believed they had an eating disorder. I think particularly it was binge eating disorder. And my friend actually had to consult, or was kind of working in their hospital with the dietitian, and the dietitian was familiar with this patient and had said, what we're going to do, or what we need to do, is put them on a diet, put them on like a 1,500 calorie diet, or it was something that seemed to me quite restrictive. And I said to my friend, I don't know about that. That doesn't sound right to me. It sounds like the underlying like mental health, eating disorder issues need to be resolved before putting them on some sort of weight loss intervention or some sort of dietary modification intervention. And it was a bit of a red flag to me, because I was like, I don't know. It just seems like putting them on a restrictive diet in order to address, obviously, their weight was just like, anyways, to me, I mean, putting anyone on a diet is not something that I necessarily want to get on board with, but unless it's for a specific condition or something like that. But just this idea, to me, that, I don't know, implementing all these rules around food when there's an underlying eating disorder,
these red flags that maybe we need to address.
To me, it was like, I feel like those things need to be addressed before dietary interventions and telling them what to eat or whatever, because restrictions or limitations or rules placed on the diet with an underlying eating disorder is just, to me, that's like a recipe for, I don't know, nothing working and worsening the situation.
A lot of that problem might be is dietitians and family doctor physicians are not psychiatrists or not psychologists, so it's like you want to it's not something that they might necessarily have on their minds from the start or something like that, but maybe the whole the research coming out with HAES is going to promote the idea of collaborative medicine. If you see a red flag, okay, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I would really recommend I'm seeing some red flags around mental health. Like, this
Yeah.
is something you need to address, because it's actually gonna, once you address these things, it's actually gonna help promote your health in other ways as well.
Exactly. I agree. And I mean, there's so many other things that play a role. Like, I don't want to, in that situation, I'm not putting the blame on anyone, not the dietitian or whatever, but I think in our healthcare system as well, a lot of healthcare systems, there's so many, I don't know, there's just a lack of funding, and there's a lack of, there's a lot of things
there's not a lot of infrastructure for that to be made easy.
Exactly. Right. So I think that was probably the biggest issue, that there may not have been a lot of resources for this specific patient to, get that eating disorder counseling or that mental health.
What's a wait list for seeing a psychiatrist? I think long, months.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that they were probably just trying to make some steps forward in this patient's care, but it just might not, based on, I don't know, it just didn't seem like the right steps. Anyways, I just thought that's really interesting. That paper reminded me of
what a great story,
of that situation. Yeah, the underlying mental health issues that probably need addressed before any sort of behavior modification. Yeah,
it's so interesting because to me, it really points out how in medicine there are all these intersections of the ethical question of what to promote as for healthcare, and also how multidisciplinary our healthcare system in a perfect world should be, but maybe isn't all the time. And again, like you're saying, not the fault of the practitioner.
Yeah, exactly.
But just the way that our healthcare system is set up.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really what I think the issue was. But anyways,
so interesting.
I totally agree that there's definitely some, I think mental health is something that definitely needs to be looked at before implementing behavior change or trying to work with someone on behavior change. You need to kind of ensure that they're in a place where they're able to, or where they're ready to do that first.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's all I had for HAES.
That was really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think
thank you.
That's really what all I had. I think this really was kind of a introductory kind of episode, introducing you guys to the idea of health at every size and the principles, and really the premise of it, just to kind of maybe spark something in you if you haven't heard of it, or you wanted to learn more about it. Maybe hearing about those 5 principles kind of sparked a little bit of a light in you, made you, I don't know, inspired to shape your ideas around size and health and healthcare and how people should be treated. One thing I did have that I wanted to share is just some resources if you guys do want to learn more about health at every size. So obviously the book Health at Every Size by Lindo Bacon would be a great place to start. Then I think that I quoted them a few times, but the Association for Size, Diversity, and Health, I was on their website quite a bit, and they have some great information, some great resources. So that's a great place to check out. And then we've both mentioned, following more weight inclusive or health at every size practitioners on social media is always a great place to get information and learn more. So I think in the show notes, we'll definitely link some of our favorite dietitians and practitioners to follow.
I'm also trying to be aware too, the things I promote in general. I'm trying to be aware of people who are differently abled, and an account that I came across recently, it's called Decolonizing Fitness. So if you're somebody who listens or watches our podcast and who is differently abled, we'll link Decolonizing Fitness as well. They have an Instagram account that shows body movement exercises for people who are differently abled, lots of various ranges of things that people can do from their homes. Really easy.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds great. Okay, so Tareq, how about you tell me what's been tasty for you this week?
Well, what's been tasty for me this week, it's kind of like a bittersweet thing. As people who listen know, I'm obsessed with Roxane Gay. Roxane Gay had an online magazine called Gay, the magazine.
Yes.
Or Gay magazine, and in it she featured lots of authors, lots of writers writing personal pieces, social commentary, etc., essays, and Roxane even wrote her own essays on there, her own articles, which were so awesome. And the sweet part of it is that I get to bring up one of my favorite articles of all time, which we've talked about on the podcast before, which is the case for checking a bag.
Yes.
One of the best
We've
reads you
discussed
can, which maybe I'll link because it's such a fun
Link
read.
it, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a fun read. And the bitter part is Gay the magazine is closing. So that's it. I know,
really?
yeah. I guess some things have to come to an end. I'm not really sure what happened there, whether it was a funding thing or I don't really know. But yeah, the online magazine is closing, but I guess it's nice that because the internet never goes away, there's maybe that's a bad thing, but there's like this repository out there of all these awesome essays and articles that will just like stay online, that we'll get to enjoy. There's lots of really cool things. There's an article about food security that's really, really interesting on there that maybe I'll link as well. People want to talk about that. It's like food security and healthy eating behavior. Really interesting article. So that's my tasty is Gay magazine.
I love it, but I'm sad that it's coming to an end.
You read The Case for Checking a Bag, right?
I think so. I thought you sent it to me.
I think I did. It's
was a
such
while
a fun
ago.
read. It's so funny. Anyway,
I always check a bag. We talked about that.
We did. What's been tasty for you, Hannah?
So for me, and it's funny that it's come to this, but well, not funny. It's sad, but it's necessary. But for me, what's been tasty this week is just an experience I had this week. I ran into, like, obviously there hasn't, there's been next to no socializing in the last month other than on FaceTime or Zoom. And I was at the grocery store getting my like bi-weekly groceries this past week, and I ran into someone that I knew, and I mean not someone that I'm close with or anything like that, but it was just like so nice to like,
you get to like see someone.
Yes, like see someone and have some sort of person-to-person contact. Not like, no, obviously we were 6 feet apart, and someone other than my partner Pat. So it was actually just the person who works the front desk at my gym here in Moncton.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, I've only lived in Moncton for a handful of months, but for the first couple months that I was here, obviously I was going to the gym regularly, and I met this front desk guy, and he's always really friendly. I mean, I had been going to the gym early in the morning, like for 6 a.m. classes, so I'd arrive at the gym at like 10 to 6, and he was always just like there, like super happy, like 5:50 in the morning, really like friendly. And so he was like a really friendly face to have when I first moved to Moncton. And
shout out to him.
Shout out to you. Unfortunately I don't even remember his name.
I bet terrible. He felt the same way about seeing you. He's like, I don't really know this person, but like someone I kind of peripherally know. This is so exciting
to like talk to someone in person that like, and just kind of catch up a little bit. Like it was just nice to just be like, oh, how are you doing? Are you, I asked him if he was bored or whatever, because obviously he works at a gym, he's not working right now, and he was like, oh, it is kind of nice not to have to get up at 4 a.m. So
yeah, I'm sure.
But anyways, that was tasty to me this week. Just, it was so nice to have some sort of in-person conversation. Yeah, because I really haven't had any of that in the last month.
That's a great tasty. That's really good. Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Shout out.
Desk. Front desk man.
Well, I think that's it. Thank you for listening to our episode, everybody. Hope you go check out some of the links in the description. Leave a like and subscribe or a rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or if you're watching on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and send in some questions if you have them. I'm really curious to see how people are holding up during the stay-at-home mandates. And thank you to the people who have been getting in touch. And Copy, I hope you've been.
You know what? We didn't get a message from Copy to Bigo, so I worry they haven't heard the episode yet. I almost want to send them a message and be like, "Hey, you should listen to episode 4. We were talking about you.
We've addressed your concerns."
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's it. We'll link some resources for Health at Every Size in the show notes. I don't know if you already said that. And yeah, we will chat with you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.